You're listening to All Things 3D, where we talk about the world of fabricating, designing, and capturing in the third dimension.
You could pick anywhere in the world that you want to go. Where would you want to go?
I would like to go to the moon, Thailand, ancient Greece,
India, to Nigeria, my homeland.
one or maybe all of the 7 wonders of the world.
When you explore different places, you have the chance to actually learn something new.
You want to be able to show the kids that there's something outside of your community that you could go to and learn from, and that there's other places you can visit.
All right, so let's do our objective and we'll talk about the lesson for today.
We're going to take a field trip to Verona, Italy to see the place where Romeo and Juliet lived.
I'm going to take you on this field trip under the water.
Okay, you guys ready? Pick up your devices.
And look in your cardboard.
What is that?
Oh, I see a shark.
It allowed us to go somewhere we wouldn't normally be able to go.
Are we in China?
This is the Great Wall of China.
We got to see the place itself, so we could actually understand what she was talking about.
How long would it take to walk the length of the Great Wall of China?
So much more enriching than just showing them a picture or just having them read about it.
This device can actually make us go to places that we've never been before.
It brings the lesson to you. You have to see it for yourself to believe it.
There's so much other places to see, so you know that it's never going to end.
Morning, everyone. Hi, this is Mike Bolzer from All Things 3D, and another episode of 3D in Review for May 29, 2015. Sadly, I'm by myself again. Actually, I've got Zach Kaplan from Inventables with me this morning. Hopefully, he'll give me some comment on the news items. But as mentioned, Chris has a family emergency that I guess is carried over. I actually haven't heard from him this week, so I'm a little concerned with him, about him and his family. But I'll try and get a hold of him this weekend. James will be joining us a little bit later. He's probably in, I guess, transit right now from his day job to be on my show, so he should be here shortly. So on that note, I'm going to introduce Zach. That's it. Yeah.
How you doing?
Hi, Zach.
Thanks for having me.
Now, we met at Maker Faire. What was that? Gosh, 2 weekends ago.
Yep.
And whirlwind of a time. Thousands of people. Got one of the worst colds of my life. No, it wasn't that bad, but I've been congested for about a week. Some coughing on a couple of days. But so how was your time there? And kind of introduce yourself as well.
Sure, it was awesome. We're from Chicago, so it was nice to get out to the valley to take a look around and see what people are doing. My background, obviously, is the founder and CEO of Inventables, and we make a couple of 3D carving machines and some free software called Easel that runs them.
Okay. Well, like I said, on my end, I've actually got your website ready to go in a little bit. So when we get through the news items, we'll start with you, and we can kind of go over your website and the different products. Pretty cool stuff. But it looks like you do more than just what I thought you did originally. So yeah, I'd like to talk a little bit more about that. All right, well, let's jump right into our first news item. So if you notice, excuse me, our first lead-in was the Google video from the keynote about exhibition. And with that, one of the things that was mentioned is that they say that they've sold over, I guess they didn't sell, that they've shipped over 1 million cardboard units. And I don't know where they came up with that figure, but let me jump to myself here. So TechCrunch reports it as 1 million. And I think part of the reason for that, excuse me, is that the 1 million is because, frankly, it's made out of cardboard. So very inexpensive. You can get it for as low as $8 on eBay, maybe even lower than that. Plus, there's a lot of plastic variants as well. In fact, one of the things that I'm going to be showing through the VR in a corner is the goggles that I'm working on. But going through the article here, pretty much identifies that VR is a curiosity, and because of its low cost, it's allowed a lot of people to explore for the first time. They have been working with, obviously, Samsung. Samsung has their Gear VR, and we all know of Oculus VR. But all of these together, plus some other efforts by some other companies, has really, really created some real interest in this area. And I've got another item a little bit later that we're going to talk about, what they showed with GoPro that I think is really, really cool. So on that note, yeah, 1 million units, pretty exciting. So the next item that I want to talk about is, we all know that, China has a lot of different businesses, but, are they really a Silicon Valley? Well, it appears that the AFR Weekend, which is the Australian financial report, identifies that, yes, they are really pushing a lot of effort into creating their own Silicon Valley, their own kind of like hub for technology thinking. Here they have a picture, and this is what struck me or caught my attention, was the CEO and tech startup of Zindian Science and Technology. I couldn't find much of them on Google. That's not a surprise, really. But it looks like they have a new 3D scanner. I guess he's showing it there, so it'll be very interesting to see what they're coming out with. But they kind of talk about the type of jobs that'll be available. And one of the reasons that they're talking about is because their manufacturing is starting to slow down. They're trying to figure out new markets to obviously keep their level of employment as well as level of growth up. And it kind of talks about here how it has actually gone down to 6.25 from 6.75. So they're just looking, to find ways to keep innovation moving in the country. And as the title indicated, are they moving away from, or the sign of Communist Party shifting? Well, it's going to be interesting how they're going to handle this. But from people that I've talked to from China, I wouldn't say they're separated from the party, but they're really consumed in business-oriented thinking. They have a lot of different ways of, I guess, more flexible. The traditional outfit from the early days of China, except in maybe the older rural areas, is kind of gone. Even you couldn't tell that they were any different from Hong Kong or anything else, other than once in a while seeing somebody on the street. Now, I haven't been there, so I can't tell you personally, but maybe Zach can kind of chime in on this. You ever been to China?
I've never been to China, but I'm really impressed and excited about what they've accomplished over the last, call it 20 years, and where they're going. I mean, people talk about them like they're, at least in the United States, like they're aliens or something, but I think just across the world, we're seeing every country sort of get access to these digital tools and digital manufacturing tools. And it doesn't matter if you're in China or Europe or United States, they're people too, and they're figuring it out just like the rest of us.
I really appreciate that attitude, Zach. That has been mine. Obviously, I've had an opportunity to talk with people from around the world and some from Asian countries. And I have to agree with you. And I try to talk a lot about what's going on in the 3D world. And, a lot of that news is coming from China, and they're being as innovative or even more innovative. As you said, they have a lot of people, and it's very interesting how their culture is changing to try and push that innovation, and there are things really happening. I was at CES, and I saw a lot of penetration in the 3D market, both in scanners and with XYZ printing. Their pervasive line from low-end FDM to SLA. So they're really trying to move forward and try and create products and compete with others. And I don't know if you're familiar with Simplify 3D, but they actually partnered with XYZ to provide them a slicer. So we're seeing a lot more of that, and I hope it continues. I'm going to drop in and say hi to my friend Bryan. Hey, Bryan.
Hey, had a little trouble getting on.
You look good there.
Oh,
I almost
really?
want to salute or something.
My Captain America tribute hat.
Yeah. So I'll drop back in a little bit later for you, Bryan. We're going through the news, but if you wanted to comment on this item from China, you're welcome to, or any other item that I'm going into. Okay, if not, we'll move right on to the next item. So my theme, obviously, today is kind of VR. Thank you, Bryan, for coming on, because that's important. We also have another guest who I think probably has some interest in VR coming on a little bit later, and that's Daniel. But VR has become very pervasive, and if you watched Google I/O yesterday, you saw that they're obviously taking it serious, even though, Bryan, we've talked about another one of their products that kind of hit the, you didn't hear that in the Google I/O, so that's kind of interesting. But you know, I guess they felt that the popularity of their cardboard allowed them to come up with a version 2, which really doesn't look much different than the previous version. But I guess the point is, and one of the reasons the article obviously is that there has been a lot of talk and obviously a lot of hype about VR and AR by Microsoft, Google, quietly no Apple yet, but you have something to bring up on that in a moment. But there's been, you know, obviously Valve, almost every major player that's created technology is now involved in VR. You know, are we looking at possibly another 3D video, or is this going to be something that really takes hold? I mean, we've seen this a decade or two ago. What's your thoughts on that, Zach? Bryan?
I think that you're going to see it, but it's going to be a slow roll for adoption.
Well, what's a slow roll in today's technology? You mean,
I think kind of like
more
a
than
decade.
a week?
Yeah. I think you're looking at like a decade before. I think it's going to sneak in. Like, I don't know if you saw the Audi now has a little heads-up display built in. And so I think you're going to start to see it sneak in through non-traditional screens, so to speak. I don't think you're going to see a bunch of people wearing Oculus in their car, but when you can drive and get additional information through your windshield, I think that's the kind of place. You're going to start to see applications more like that.
Yeah, and obviously the technology is lending itself to that. Microsoft works with something similar to that with projected images onto some type of optics is the way they're going. So, and also, as you're probably aware of, the military, especially in their jet fighters, have been using heads-ups for a long time now. It just hasn't been really cost-effective, and we're seeing that now. Bryan, you want to chime in on this?
Sure.
What do you
well,
think?
I actually have a slightly different take on it. I think that it's going to get taken up really quickly in the next 3 years. You're going to see saturation, penetration and saturation in the market, because we can't have this many players with this many minds and this much money dedicated to getting it out to the masses. Plus, the masses are kind of hungry for it. I mean, we are the early adopters, and we've been hungering for it since the 90s, or some of us who were actually born before that. But
I'll raise my hand.
Yeah, my take on it is, did anybody see a lot of the things coming down the pipe technology-wise and social media and Instagram and all that other stuff that really became ubiquitous within a very short period of time? It's kind of looking for the killer app or the killer experience. And I firmly believe that that's out there. I was having a discussion with one of my producers that I work with, that in the next 3 years we're likely to see an Oscar for virtual reality or mixed reality based content. Just because I think that they can't be spending this much money and this much effort for it to be something that's going to take a long time, in order to trickle down to all of us. And you can see that with, for instance, Google's Spotlight Stories, for instance. I think that's one of the items I have on my list to discuss. Fast and the Furious director Justin Lin, I think he directed from Tokyo Drift on forward. Great director. I love his work. And he directed, I guess it took 2 years, developing a 360, not a virtual reality experience, but a 360 experience for Google specifically, to release on their Spotlight Stories app. And I played with it, and I have my own critique of it that I'm not going to go into too much right now until we start discussing some more of this stuff. But you also see that Apple, about 2 years ago, bought Primesense, which is the company that makes the sensors that the structure sensor, which we both happen to have and use, employs. And so couple that with their purchase, I guess yesterday it was announced, of Metaio, I can't even pronounce it exactly.
I think it's Metaio, and I've got some interesting backstory. In fact, what I'll do is I'll jump to that item there. So we're all in agreement for some part that VR and AR is here. How we see it, if you look at this little pie chart here, AR hardware, cameras, data, film, TV, so forth. Right now, obviously, the hardware is coming out, and as you were saying, people are investing a lot of money in this. In fact, I think there's more money being invested by more companies than there was in 3D.
I couldn't announce it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Brian. What was that?
Was that me? I didn't say anything. That was like a delayed thing, I guess.
Ooh, spooky.
That was very spooky.
Okay, well, let me find the. Here we go.
The other thing is, that for my last two vehicles, I'm a BMW fan. They both have heads-up displays, so it's something that's been around, at least in the automotive industry, for quite some time. And I think recently, BMW via Mini has a augmented reality goggle. Yes, you might have seen that. I don't know if you actually did anything on that. I know you're a Mini fan.
Yeah, my wife has a Mini.
But all accounts are that it's pretty good, the experience. And I've had some conversations with people who've had HoloLens on their head, and they say it's while it's a simplified experience and very limited field of view, it's a very compelling experience as well. So I think it's up to us to create the experiences and the content and the stuff that's going to sell this. And I think that there are just so many people who are so excited about this. I put it in the hands of people who are artists. I'm working with a music artist right now, a famous singer, and we're going to be doing all of her concerts and some of her shows and her videos as VR. As soon as she put on the goggles, she immediately was like, this is how I'm doing all my content from here on out. So you're going to start seeing more influence makers who are going to really help to pull the tech along as well. And I think that's what all these big companies are focusing on with the Spotlight Stories from Google or Oculus Story Studio. They're realizing that all this great tech means very little if we don't have something to watch and interact with. Anyway.
And obviously that's where you come in, and look forward to, I didn't get time to set it up. Maybe you can send me the link. But you've got some more, what do you want to call it, revisions to that little video we showed about a month ago that you were using with the Blackmagic cameras that I'd like to show again. So let's kind of jump into this article here, and there's a reason I want to bring it up. Metaio asked me, they had a AR show about a month ago, and as they indicate here, they're from Germany, but I think they, in my opinion, were kind of uppity. They didn't want to pay for anything other than my presence at the show, and I just felt like that didn't sit well with me. At least pay for the expenses of travel and so forth. But that's my own personal experience. We did get a chance to see them at Real 2015. They do have some interesting technology from an augmented reality standpoint, but they are also working with Occipital, and if you remember, Occipital is the one that creates the structure sensor, which is derived from the Primesense sensor system, which is the same thing in the Kinect. So don't you think that's kind of interesting, this kind of little circle that's going on? Jeff, if you're listening, sorry. I brought this up to Jeff about a month ago that maybe there was going to be something released in the new iPad 12-inch that may have incorporated that, and he got a little concerned with that. Luckily, it was just a rumor at that time. But it is interesting that they're buying, just bought this company. They already have Primesense. Let's see what they're going to do with all this. As we talked earlier, they're the quiet ones in this, but a lot of times they're the quiet ones and then they explode with something very innovative or exciting. But obviously it looks like they're investing in something to do something as well. So thank you, Brian, for bringing that one up.
And
right.
Incidentally, if you look in the right corner of the thing you're showing, you see Splatoon. I was up all night playing Splatoon. I don't know if you guys know about this game. It's a big game. First new thing from Nintendo in a long time. New kind of property.
Not familiar with it. Okay, so so that's about it for our news items today. So let's kind of jump right back into, let's see, I'll stick with the VR corner right now since I've got Bryan. The other item that was mentioned at Google I/O, and I have a little video to go along with this, so I'll go ahead and play it. Here we go.
So that's the camera geometry.
Oh, no.
Because cameras kind of only capture the world like this. It's like watching a flat version of the world through a tiny little window. And if you want to capture something that's truly immersive, there are really only a handful of very custom camera rigs in the world that'll do the job. And even they have their limitations. We want to change that. We want to put professional, previously impossible tools in the hands of any creator who's motivated so that they can capture the world around them and then share it in a way that lets all of us jump to the top of that mountain, jump to any place or event on the planet, and experience those sights and sounds like we're actually there. So today, we'd like to preview something that we call Jump. Jump enables any creator to capture the world in VR video, video that you can step inside of and make it available to everyone. It has three parts: a camera rig, very specialized geometry, an assembler which turns raw footage into VR video, and a player. Let's start with the camera. So the rigs that we built, they include 16 camera modules mounted in a circular array. You can actually use off-the-shelf cameras for this if you want. And you can make the array out of basically any material. We've made one out of 3D printed plastic, one out of machined metal, and for good measure, of course, we also made one out of cardboard. And it worked. What's critical is the actual geometry, and we spent a lot of time optimizing everything: the size of the rig, the number and placement of the cameras, their field of view, relative overlap, every last detail. And seem to be losing the slides here. Every last detail. And now what we want to do is share what we've learned with everyone. So just like we did with cardboard, we're going to be opening up the camera geometry with plans available to everyone this summer. So anyone who's motivated will be able to build a jump-ready camera. Now, of course, if you're a pro and you've done filming with multiple cameras, you know that it's kind of complicated. You need to synchronize recording, exposure control, and so on. And so we thought it would be good if someone who really knows how to build a great camera could help out. So we called our friends at GoPro. And today, I'm excited to announce that GoPro plans to build and sell a jump-ready 360-degree camera array. Now, GoPro, of course, has enabled people to capture some of the world's most awesome experiences, including spherical content. And they're bringing their camera expertise to the jump-ready rig, which will include shared camera settings, frame-level synchronization, and other features that will allow all 16 cameras to operate as one. Here's what it looks like. So GoPro is actually here with us today, and they brought one of their rigs, and it's in our I/O sandbox if you want to check it out. So that's the camera geometry. Next up is what we call the assembler. And this is where the Google magic really begins. The assembler takes 16 different video feeds and uses a combination of computational photography, computer vision, and a whole lot of computers to recreate the scene as viewed from thousands of in-between viewpoints everywhere along the circumference of the camera array. And we then use these in-between viewpoints to synthesize the final imagery, stereoscopic VR video. Let me show you an example of how the assembler creates one single frame of VR video. So first, we take the raw camera data and we do a rough alignment. Next, we perform a global color calibration and exposure compensation, and things start to look a bit better. But if we zoom in, you'll see that there are still seams between some of the images, like here. To fix those, our algorithms use information about the underlying structure of the scene to perform a three-dimensional alignment. And the 3D alignment works by compensating for the depth of different objects in the scene, like this. And it's this understanding of depth that also enables us to create all of those in-between viewpoints, which you can see here, like this. pretty cool. It's a fundamentally different and more advanced approach than anything else we've seen. And unlike other solutions, you don't see borders where the cameras are spliced together, and you have beautiful, accurate, depth-corrected stereo in all directions. Now, we've actually built a bunch of these cameras and sent them to places all over the world, from the Google campus in Mountain View to Iceland to Japan, and we've captured some really beautiful places. I have to say, you got to see these.
So what do you guys think of that?
Pretty cool.
Brian?
Yeah, I think it's cool. I think the proof will be in the pudding, because I looked at the sample from a link, and it wasn't impressive as far as excessive parallax. But obviously, they don't really have an output for it yet that would really demonstrate the full stereoscopic 360 that they're kind of touting. I kind of feel. Do you guys watch Silicon Valley at all? The show on HBO.
Yeah.
Kind of feel like it's like it's like Hulu over here, and they're like, I'm expecting them to announce that they'll give you new eyes that will allow you to shoot 360 or something. I don't know. I mean, I love that they're doing it, but if Project Tango is any indication to me, this could be a lot of hype, in my opinion. And I'm not 100% convinced that the GoPro, or at least the 4, or even a 4 Plus GoPro Hero, would be really the best, solution. Perhaps in an enclosed space like that, where they're in that garage, it would be usable. But I think there's going to be different camera setups and different rigs for different shots, different locations, whatever you're trying to capture. So I think it's great that they're doing that, but I'm always hesitant when everybody says, oh, we have this great algorithm that's just going to automatically do everything we want, when I think that all the top people doing it now know there's a lot of hand stitching, a lot of pixel pushing that's done beyond what the computers and the algorithms spit out.
I totally agree with you, Brian. As you know, that I've been doing or playing with it a little bit with my V.360, and it's still in its infancy. It's kind of cool that they're using 16 cameras, and I'm trying to remember the name of the company. We had them on, not actually had them on, I'm hoping to have them on, but we covered them. They're using an interesting technique to provide almost a hologram type of experience, multiple planes. I think it's Otoy. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Otoy, yes.
So they've got something coming out that seems very intriguing, using processing power in order to derive that hologram type effect. But you and I both, Brian, have seen how the GoPro has been evolving, and it's interesting how they've teamed up with them. Now, obviously, this is what, a $20,000 unit? Is that what they're pricing it at? But there's also a $3,000 unit, which only includes 4 GoPros, and then I've seen other people use, use more than that. So yeah, I think this is very intriguing. Like you said, let's see what the processing actually brings up. But if it's like what they're doing with their image processing in what their new Google image or whatever, it may be intriguing. They call this Jump. Supposedly later in the summer it's going to be available on YouTube. But if it's anything like their V360, where they just haphazardly change things while you're putting up your panoramics, that may not spin well. But
I'll let you know, because I already signed up for Jump, so we'll see if they accept me into the program.
Cool. Well, I obviously want you back on to talk about it. So we've got somebody new joining us today, besides Zach and Brian, but we now have Daniel, so we've got a full house. Well, we'll have one more person. It'll be a full house. Hi, Daniel. Why don't you kind of introduce yourself a little bit? I mean, we've talked back and forth. One of the reasons is that you got some excellent scans out on Sketchfab, which is what drew my attention. As we talked about, I'm obviously kind of big into it. In fact, I'll be showing a new product here in a moment that I've been working on. But let's see. I think I've got your website here. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, and I'll find it, and then you can talk a little bit about it, and then get back into the next items.
Sure. First off, thanks for having me. Happy Friday, guys. My name is Dan Cahill. I work as a 3D modeler and scanning artist using multiple disciplines for a few different companies, namely Wolfberg.com, Adornably.com, and I do 3D printing via cool snow globes. And all these different companies, I use the entire scanning pipeline, everything from LiDAR to heavy use of photogrammetry and retopologizing for game and Oculus use.
And you've done some excellent work. Now, I've noticed that, well, obviously here's some of your sculpture. Now, do these images pan through if I click on it, or?
You know, actually, my most updated stuff is on my Twitter feed. That's where I post all my photogrammetry photogrammetry scans.
Okay. Well, Twitter is somewhat of a bandwidth hog, so I didn't want to keep that up, so I apologize for that. But yes, I'll make sure in the show notes that people are aware of your Twitter feed. In fact, if you want to go ahead and mention it now.
Sure, it's just at Daniel Cahill, CAHILL1, and creative name. And I post pretty much daily. I scan on a daily basis and retopologize, and yeah, I'm really into scanning professionally and as a hobby.
Now, you gave me two other links. I'm going to bring them up. This is Adornability.
Adornably, yeah.
Adornably, sorry. So what does this do?
So it's an augmented reality app that allows you to design your own living space using your own iPad and your own living room. Let's see, what was it last year? In 2014, we won the Webby Award for Best Shopping Experience. And basically, you just drop a magazine in the room, take a photo of the room, and that gives size and scale, and you can drop virtual furniture into the room. It's all size and scale accurate. Move it around how you like, design your room, and then click on that item, and you can purchase it and have it arrive at your doorstep.
Wow. Pretty neat. Zach, I didn't forget about you. I thought while we're still carrying over to the augmented reality and VR, I just thought we'd move into them. So you also have another website where you do called Woofbert.
Woofbert Inc., yes.
And it looks like you've got a system actually that's more modern than the one that I was working with, but that looks like a Trimble LiDAR system.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously more modern than the one that I'm familiar with. It was a lot more bulky than this. But that's what also attracted me. As some of our audience may know, LiDAR is using lasers to reflect and measure time of flight back into a sensor, and then from there they can do scans of large objects, buildings, and so forth. We had early on, I'd say back last summer in 2014, a group, I think based out of San Francisco, name escapes me, but they scan things like Mount Rushmore using LiDAR systems like this, and that was pretty neat. And sorry, I'll make sure in the show notes I remember that, but that's a pretty cool project. Are you familiar with them? Daniel, have you heard of them?
No, I've heard of, I forget what it's called. I think it's the World LiDAR Project, I want to say, where they're going around to different monuments all around the world and using LiDAR to scan caves and monuments and such. I can't remember the name.
It's ARC.
Yeah.
I think it's ARC.
It is ARC.
Okay, ARC. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
And they're based in San Francisco. I had them on before. I'll see where they're at now. They had some interesting stories because they talked about. Okay, I think it's finished now. Oops, yeah, sorry about that. They had, was it the Ireland paid for them to do the scan of Mount Rushmore. So they weren't able to put it into public domain because the rights were owned by Ireland, something like that. So we had an interesting discussion about our own monuments weren't even made or purchased by our own country to scan. So I thought that was a little curious. But if you go back a month, or excuse me, about a year, you'll see the podcast that we did on that and get more detail than my brain obviously can spit out at this point. So you also have a sketch fab where you've got a series of models that you put out, and obviously that's what attracted me. So what attracted you to doing scanning in AR, Daniel?
I've been working as a modeler and character modeler for quite a few years, generally just Maya, ZBrush, you know, that sort of thing. And I played around with photo scanning using, I think back then it was Photosynth or Project Photofly, which later became 123D Catch.
Mm-hmm.
And I did what most people do. You make a scan or two, and you go, "Oh, that's cool." Later on, I was playing around with 123D Catch and retopologized and baked a map over and got it into game, and just really fell in love with it. And a buddy of mine sent me an invite to a group on Facebook called 3D Scanning Users Group, and from there, it's all professionals doing 3D scanning since the late 90s using LiDAR techniques, Agisoft photo scan techniques, photogrammetry, white light, and my mind was blown. And so I still hang out on that group pretty much daily and try to soak up all that I can. Principally, I do a lot of photogrammetry for myself, but for work, we do use LiDAR and other techniques.
So are you using the new beta program by Autodesk called Memento?
I do have it. I've played around with it. It's got some really nice tools, very nice tools for closing holes and such. Most of the time I use PhotoScan, Agisoft PhotoScan, for work. There's some flexibility there that is a little different than Memento.
Okay. Well, I'll probably have you back on again, maybe to give us a tutorial at a later date.
Sure.
So what I'd like to do now is jump back to Zach and then bring up his website. As we mentioned earlier on in the show, you have a product called X-Carve, but your site actually has a lot of other things. But let's kind of talk about this a little bit. With everybody creating 3D extrusion-based additive-type printers, this is unique that it's kind of a subtractive technique. Can you give us a little more background behind it?
Yeah, so it's a 3D carving machine. So X-Carve is the open frame model. We got 500 millimeters by 500 millimeters, and then 1,000 by 1,000. And then Carvey, which is a closed machine. Yeah, you can see it right there, where it's got a little door, so you don't need safety glasses or a shop. It's quieter. But powering all this stuff is a free software platform called Easel. And traditionally, with these kinds of tools, you needed CAD, CAM, and machine control software. And what we did is, with Easel, we combined it all into one and made it free. And we deliver it online at easel.com.
Wow. So it's, actually, I think you had some samples, and I thought they were pretty cool. One of the thing behind this, and I guess there were actually 2 or 3 other people that I saw at Maker Faire, have CNC or subtractive devices. What sets your item apart versus some of these others I saw there? I think there was one next to the actual occipital booth. I guess one of the things is how much does it cost?
Sure. So the little X-Carve starts at $800. The big one's $1,200, and the Carvey is $2,000.
Okay.
What sets the Carvey apart from the lion's share of the ones is if you're using Easel, you can just click the Carve button in the upper right-hand corner, and it's almost like a printing experience where you click the button and it starts.
Oh.
Where all the rest of them require some sort of technical setup and zeroing. You can kind of see in that picture you have up there the smart clamp in the lower left-hand corner.
Mm-hmm.
So when you click the carve button, the machine automatically touches off on that little silver button and starts carving.
So how does this differ from, let's say, laser cutting?
So with these machines, you can do about 2.5 inches in depth. And you can do full 3D complex curves, where laser, you're really limited to engraving and cutting all the way through.
Yep, that's true. And also the cost is a little bit more pricey than this as well. Even at $2,000, I think on eBay you can find some Chinese brands for about $2,000, but I'm told that you have to kind of stay away from them. Normally they're more expensive. How about performance-wise compared to a laser or even standard additive printing? How quickly can you carve something out?
Yeah, so much faster. Like we have the video of the skateboard that we made it in about 6 minutes. So one of the benefits of these kinds of tools, like a 3D carving machine, is you can do wood, you can do plastic, you can do soft metals. Yeah, right there, MDF. On our machines, they're really not designed to do steel. But really any soft metal, gold, silver, all kinds of plastics, ABS, HDPE, any kind of wood that you can think of, bamboo, hardwoods. Where with the current tabletop FDM machines, you're really looking at ABS or PLA for the most part. There's some specialty stuff. And with the lasers, you're mostly looking at woods and acrylics, maybe engraving. They can't, I mean, the tabletop lasers can't cut through metal. An industrial one could. Definitely not at the $2,000 price point or the $800 price point.
That's true. Yeah, we just mentioned that. Okay, it shows here that fall of 2015. Is that wishful thinking, or are we really hard on the delivery in fall? I guess that could span all the way to November, so I guess you got some safety buffer there.
Yeah,
so,
no, we just did a pretty extensive blog post on that. We did the pilot production run 2 weeks ago, and everything turned out pretty well. There's some manufacturing things we're going to adjust before we go to production tooling, and we're on track. We actually started issuing POs this week.
Wow, excellent. Yeah, well, obviously very nice looking. What you had at the show was pretty impressive. Problem is all these different things, and I have limited cash. They should make a special funding for all this. Anybody else want to chime in? Ask any questions of Zach while we've got everybody else here?
Obviously, it'll carve castable wax as well.
Yeah.
For jewelry design. Great.
Lots of jewelers get these machines. We have one customer who has the X-Carve, and he makes little fixtures. So he'll do castable wax and then pour the silver or gold into it.
Nice. With easel, is it STL friendly, VRML? What file formats?
Yeah, so currently the only format you can import is SVG, but over the summer we're launching an API where people will be able to build all sorts of plugins and do all sorts of different file formats.
Great.
Okay, I've got one more question. The bit that you have there, how long do they last?
It really depends what you're cutting. You know, so it's cutting like a foam or something, you're probably like 2,000 hours. Cutting some aluminum, with maybe you're more like 40 hours. It really depends how hard you're driving the machine and into what material.
Okay. And obviously you'll be able to buy more if you need to, correct? How many come with it? I'm assuming that you get some extra bits.
Yeah, the base package comes with one, but then we've got upgrade packs where you can get like a 10-pack, like a one of each pack. The inexpensive ones for like beginners are like $5 a bit, but you can get pretty serious with some specialty pits all the way up to 30, 40, $50 a bit.
Okay. I'm assuming that you probably have a diamond carbide type bit or something like that.
Yeah, carbide tipped.
Okay. So if somebody wanted to come out and get one of these, where can they go?
Just go to inventables.com.
Okay.
Everything's online.
Okay. And you offer other things besides these carving machines, right? You have different materials.
Yeah, so we have about 1,000 different materials in the warehouse in our store. Everything is same-day shipping.
Okay. Yeah, you have electrical, fastening, so forth. I went through it a little bit, and yeah, it's pretty extensive. So if somebody is wanting to not only get a Carvey or the X-Carve, they have an assortment of other components to invent things. So that's inventables.com. So thank you, Zach. All right, let's move on. I'm actually going to do my own little promotion here for my own product. As some of you know, especially Bryan, who's been working with me, I've created an app that I call its name will be BioStep Capture, but it's kind of the pro version of the capture software for occipital. And one of the things that's very important with it is that it's iOS driven. In fact, I will bring it up. It is this little unit here. It works on either the iPhone or the iPhone 6 Plus using the occipital structure sensor, the thing that makes it look like, what's that robot from that movie?
Short Circuit?
Either Short Circuit or what was the other one? The one.
Wally.
Wally. All right, Wally. But this is the new NEODi mount case, which also includes a new bayonet connector for assortment of lenses. Bryan, I think we've talked about this before. We'll have to make sure you get the newer version.
I can't wait.
Yeah. And what makes this the NEODi mount is I use, obviously, rare earth or neodymium. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing it correctly. That's why I call it NEODi. But essentially 3 of them, so I can remove it very quickly. I have an assortment cases for the iPad as well as the iPhones. So what I'm going to do, and hopefully I'll be able to do this very quickly. I have to wait till my little...
If you don't mind my asking, where did you get that black lightning cable adapter?
This is what they first came out with before going to white. I think Jeff likes white for some reason.
I have the white one. Not as happy with it.
I'm sorry, you're happy with it or not?
Not as happy with it.
Oh. Okay. So I'm going to jump over to the camera so you can actually see it, and then I've got my assistant back here. She's a little thin in the face, but I think we can deal with that. So one of the things that I wanted to do with the software is make all the features that are available. One is I created a reticle so that you know exactly what you're scanning, and then if you notice it changes out of range and then turns blue, which gives you an actual real-time depth measurement, which I find very important when you're scanning. So you may not hear me as well. I'll kind of talk louder. So once it's ready to scan, you can scan, and you have a few other features like the number of voxel or the size of the voxel. In this case, I'm going with a 2 millimeter. High quality color. They have a new feature where they're taking RGB and depth information for tracking. They have a 50,000 or 3,000 face, or 300, which is what I set it to provide more faces for identifying the texture. So I'm going to go ahead and do this real quick. So I'll only do a little bit of it. So there you go. And now I'll hit the color view. And one of the things that's unique in their new SDK is they provided a much better texturing process. And you'll see that in a moment. And one of the things I didn't do is that I've also put in some extra tools to actually focus the camera. With iOS 8, you have that ability now to focus the camera. So there you go. So currently, you can email it, and I don't know if I've got Bryan's name in here. I'll send it to Bryan, but I don't think I do. So I'll send it myself. But it's very easy to work with. I'm going to provide a couple other formats. This will be married with a product that allows you to capture scans for orthotics, and then it will go right out to, I don't know if you're familiar with Parse, to their database. And then I'm also going to be providing a Dropbox type feature so that you can send them upload if you don't like email, which I don't always like. With the iPhone 6 and iPhone Plus, or if you've got an LT version of an iPad, you're always on, so you can always scan and immediately upload it. As you notice, it took very little time to do that. So yeah, I'm very excited. It is ready. In fact, Bryan, I think I sent you a link. I'll be setting up more beta users, and then I'm hoping to have this released out in the Apple Store or iTunes Store probably mid-June, maybe 3 weeks, depending on how long Apple takes to get this done. Hello, James.
Hey, how's it going?
Okay, we've got a full house today. So we'll kind of keep moving on. In fact,
hey, Michael, do you mind if I ask you a question real quick about your scanner?
Sure, go ahead.
Like the portability of it. When you email it, is the texture map separate? Is it a separate texture file that's included, or is it vertex color?
No, it is an actual texture map now. I think it's 2048 by 2048, and it is an OBJ file. I will also be providing an S.r.L version as well, so that there won't have to be any conversion process on your end. So if you just need the mesh file, one of the things that I've really pushed for in mine is to get, as you're probably familiar with, it's one thing to have good textures, but it's another thing, especially if you're printing them, to have good mesh detail. And I found like the product like Itzy's provides great textures, but it's limited the number of faces. So the actual, when you want it, curves and so forth, leaves something to be desired, and I normally have to bring it to something else to either smooth them or add detail. So I've kind of worked around that. I find this to be a good compromise because if you're using Shapeways color process, they can't deal with more than a 1024 by 1024 texture file anyways, so you're kind of having to downsize, and Sculpteo, in fact, will not even convert for you, and they've shipped back or dropped out a couple of my prints because of that, because my texture file was too big because they converted to a BMP or something like that, which I thought was kind of curious. But so yeah, this is perfect for that because it's right in that sweet spot, and then can be obviously put out there. If you're familiar with this scanner, though, with my lens system, for one version 2. James, there's a lot of noise on your end.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me turn off my mic. I'm sorry.
So so there is a little bit of fringing, but now with the new lens system, let me go back up to it. I've gone with a larger lens to be a little more expensive, plus I have an infrared coating on it. So the fringing that I experienced in the previous version is minimized. So it's more self-contained. It's kind of like a flare or something like that. From your perspective, Daniel, you just bring it into another app and you just clean it up, smooth it, and so forth. But trying to get it to the point where you have to do very little and just be able to export it if you need to. So
great.
So it's very reasonable. I don't know if you're familiar with the sensor, but it's about $375. And then if you've got an iPhone, there isn't been much work in the Android area yet. I know that somebody was trying to turn the Open, was it NI version 2 into Android, but he hasn't had a lot of luck or a lot of time. So maybe we'll see more effort in that. The other thing, while we're still on this, is that I've made a lot of progress in another product. And this is my prototype here of what I call NEODiVR. Everybody can see that there. And one of the things that I've done, and I'll see if I can do it here, is the case style. I've been working with a company called Grip and Shoot, which is the handle you saw there. So I've been using this to allow me to bring it into a headset. So now I call it environment awareness, but now it allows me to put this on, and with their new, I can't remember the name of it, but they've got a title for it. Instead of scanning in detail, you scan more, what do you call it, loosely, but that allows you to see walls and objects. And then you can feed this back into the AR or VR world and be able to move around in an environment like a museum or so forth. And kind of like, another product like HoloLens that might be really expensive and maybe out sometime next year, but this will be out probably August. So I have a prototype, and I'm also looking at altering a version called the Metaio from France that's already packaged, very similar to my prototype here. All I have to do is replace the plate here with the one that you see there, and you have a full package version. So I'm working with them. So I'm hoping to have something soon. Occipital will have a stereo version of their test software. Hopefully by the end of the day, they're going to be doing something unique I think in a week or two, and so they're looking at getting a prototype of the case to use it with. So that should be very interesting, Bryan. Okay, well, we've talked a lot about VR. James had some interesting things that he wanted to bring up. I think if you still got your split monitor, James, go ahead and talk about it. But one of the things that James has been really excited about is trying to work with pneumatics and print items through pneumatics. So he's been doing a lot of research in this area, and one of the things that he's going to bring up is something that he's been working on. James, you have that up?
Sure. I guess let me try to switch to my screen. Definitely not a pro at this, but let me. Here we go. So what I've been trying to figure out is a way to get seals for an actuator, a linear actuator, to be actually in the print itself, so you don't have to add it. One of the things I've talked to Mike and also Chris on our show is how to print some sort of robot or mechanical device with one go at it, so you wouldn't have to put parts and pieces together later on. So this just kind of shows what I was trying to come up with. This is when it has no pressure with pneumatics. Sorry, going kind of fast. Hold on. You've got your kind of air channel or chamber here. You've got a hollow space here, and then this would be this part right here would be your rod, your actuator rod. So when you apply compressed air, it would push this down, the hollow space would compress, essentially giving a seal. Again, I haven't tested all this, but this is just, I guess, a prototype or schematic. And then the last one, oh, I don't know where the other one is. Oh, there it is. The last one shows, you know, this moving back and forth and this creating a seal. So,
you know, Zach's got a lot of experience in this area. You want to provide some feedback? What do you think of the idea?
It's interesting. What's your vision for where this is going?
It'd be in some. It's a robot that I'm making. I can't share too much details, but it's something that it's got a linear actuator that goes up and down, and I'm trying to make it so I don't have to put parts and pieces together. Trying to get everything integrated. I've been looking at HIPS filament so that can dissolve. I'm just trying, because there's two head printers are available pretty readily in the market, but anything past that really isn't. So I'm just trying to come up with a way to put a seal in without actually physically putting one of those, I guess, O-ring seals, or so I was trying to come up with a way.
Have you looked at the NinjaFlex material?
No. One thing I was trying to do is use ABS to make the actual body, and then the hips to dissolve. You know, I wish 3 or 4 extruder machines were more readily available. I don't know of any, except for one that I'm going to bring up later in the show. But
yep. Well, it's a pretty cool idea, and obviously, you know, a lot of us think of how can we separate our components and then assemble it. But I think James is on to a unique, not necessarily unique, but obviously there's been other test samples out there where you build the entire component together and either using dissolvable filament or breaking it apart. You have a fully functional moving object that's fully enclosed. So I really think that's an interesting direction. All right, so moving on to our next item, which is our projects of the week. And I obviously already talked about mine that are coming up, but one of the things that James put in there I thought was kind of interesting, and I've already moved to the video, and I'm shutting off the sound because I found that anytime I have sound that's playing from a video, I get sometime a takedown notice, so hopefully there won't be any sound when I play this. This is from a video, what's it, G-High? What's the name? I'm not familiar with the person.
I don't know either.
So it appears that they were doing 3D printed.
Just make sure you don't go too far in the video. PG.
I'm gonna have to turn that off. But essentially, they 3D printed some faces. There you go for this video, and obviously it's just an interesting perspective that things are going. My wife has made 3D, not 3D, actually standard sculpted mask, and I think that this is a unique way. Obviously, having my product, the scanner, we should be able to do this and have conforming masks and be able to work with them. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Okay.
This is some of them, Mike, that was used in the video. Well, this one wasn't, but so I don't know if you wanted to. Oh,
no, that's
people
I'm
can probably
actually
see my screen. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody can see your screen. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with the actor, but my wife and I watched The Walking Dead, so he's one of the characters from that.
Oh.
Just FYI, if you didn't know that. So pretty interesting. Obviously, 3D is, or tangible 3D is kind of moving into a lot of different markets, including video. I think Bjork did some, last year that required a lot of 3D printing. So, yeah, everybody's getting in the act, and as Bryan's aware of, you're now using it in the VR world, and you're seeing a lot of celebrities and talent trying to incorporate VR. So we're seeing a lot of work that will keep us busy, I guess. So that's about it. My products. I don't know if you're familiar with 3D Warehouse. I'll bring it back up here. I don't know if you ever have to use anything like this, Daniel, but I found sometimes 3D Warehouse, and in fact, I think it is owned by Trimble now, right? Because Trimble owns SketchUp.
I think that's right.
But I keep forgetting, and there's a few other places that I go out to get models, but I keep forgetting that SketchUp, or as they call it, 3D Warehouse, has tons of models. And now a lot of them are in the SketchUp format, but you can get a free version of SketchUp, and then there is an exporter plugin that goes out to S.r.L. So for free, you can pretty much take any of these models and use them. I don't know what the rights are on them. Some of them are for open or public domain. Some of them aren't, so you need to be very careful in what you use in your own designs. But it could be a good place to start. Some of them are kind of crude, like this little car here, but some of them are fairly extensive, especially some of the what do you want to call it, historical artifacts and monuments and architectural designs from around the world. In fact, I played with some of these and brought them into Unity, so they're very easy to import and export and other things if you've done that. If you've worked with Unity, Unity actually has a plugin for SketchUp, so it's very easy to go directly from the warehouse into Unity, which is the gaming engine. Bryan, are you familiar with this site?
Of course. I've been using it for years. I'm actually a SketchUp subscriber for years and years. So before Trimble even purchased and then 3D Warehouse became, interestingly enough, about a year and a half ago, for a major out-of-home company, they do all the billboards. They own a lot of the digital billboards in Times Square. So for a pitch we went in, because we were building an augmented reality kind of unified billboard screen for them, where you could have this whole storyline and what have you. But I went in there and grabbed all the actual buildings that they had. People had done models of them, and just put them into a quick little demo that allowed you to, wearing a DK1, because this was a couple years ago now, go through and see, and so they could it would help them to even sell their inventory, but also demonstrate blocking and how a campaign might work. So we wanted to do things where we would unify all the boards in Times Square at certain times, and then they would have characters that would jump in and jump out of the screen, and all these different things that we had pitched them on. So yes, I have definitely a lot of experience with 3D Warehouse. I also use TurboSquid as well. You have to pay for those, but
TurboSquid can be quite expensive, but they've got some excellent models out there. And the good thing is, once you purchase it, you can use it how you want to. For the most part, I think some of them do have some limitations, but once you buy it, it's yours, which may not always be the case with 3D Warehouse. But as you're saying, if you're using it for promotional, not necessarily promotional, but for demoing, it's a great place to start. We've talked about other sites like 3D Squid and a couple of other ones. GrabCAD is another one that you can get some stuff.
Sketchfab is downloadable now too, right? And so is I believe PinShape are downloadable models.
You can. In fact, I have put some of my models up on Sketchfab that I've checked to have downloadable, and I notice some people do download them, probably to check quality, because I'm using it as my test site for my scans. But yes, you can check it to download it. So if you have content, and Bryan and I have talked about it. Sketchfab, I think, is going to be the next. What did we call it?
I was calling it the Instagram of 3D. Because if Apple ever makes use of their Primesense, or Project Tango gets rolled into any new Nexus phones, everyone's going to be taking 3D selfies. That's going to be the next big thing. So I've actually told, in the 90s, I have a large family, and I told a bunch of people to buy InfoSeek, and a couple of my uncles made a lot of money on that. So they're always asking me for stock tips. And Sketchfab is not publicly traded, but I believe that you can invest in like a fund that does their, that will assign the funds to them. It's a company based out of England. But anyway, so yes, my belief is that someone's going to buy Sketchfab at some point in time, and because there's so many different platforms supported, Facebook. Even the Unity forums, you can directly embed 3D content now. So I think it's going to be something that's just going to be ubiquitous. And, I have a lot of fun just playing around with it. I scanned with the structure sensor over Thanksgiving my entire family, and I have a large Chinese family. So I'm making bobblehead dolls for them for Christmas this year, of all of them. So that was, a nice thing to do, as opposed to always going out and at the last minute trying to buy presents. I figure put a little time into it, and if you imagine what it's like at Thanksgiving to scan 18 people, it's about 4 hours of scanning my family. I did not eat much, but at any rate, that's just one way I think that all this technology is really going to trickle down. Obviously, I'm a gear guy. We're all gear guys, so we're well ahead of the curve right now. But you're going to see people at clubs, and I'm sure they're going to be 3D selfie sticks soon enough too.
I've already seen booths going up in malls and such for, you walk in and it's a large camera array and it's just a quick snapshot to color print of yourself, just in retail spaces. So it's coming quick.
And for electronic companies, I mean, it makes a lot of sense for them to come out with models and give it freely, because I went to GrabCAD to look for motors and servos, and I'm basing my design off of a motor that I found on GrabCAD, and that's how. And when they go, well, why did you use this motor versus another one? Because I found a 3D model and I can model it. So it makes a lot of sense for companies too.
Yeah, and I've used GrabCAD as well. The good thing about GrabCAD is that they provide not only, in some cases, the STL file or the mesh files, but they actually provide the parametric files as well. So if you're in the design, you actually can work directly with the parametric files, which I think is super. Some of these other sites, like Sketchfab and the other, provide a format that's not necessarily engineering quality, but it can give you a start to work on your own. So do I have the correct location? I do. If you notice on my screen here, I have a wide assortment. Man, you're prolific. Of things from Daniel that he scanned. As mentioned, he uses a lot of photogrammetry. The Spring Ranch pump was done also with photogrammetry. Is that correct?
Yeah, so a lot of these, this has been my testing site, just like you, for a couple of years, I guess. So there's quite a few. This one was photogrammetry. I use dual cameras, two 700Ds with or without polarizing filters, and a wireless remote. And I can just go around and quickly trigger 2 photos at once with heavy amount of overlap. And I think it was 278 photographs.
So how long did it take you? One of the things that I find intriguing about the structure sensor is how quickly I can get, obviously, depth information and a mesh. Photogrammetry can give you great detail, but it takes a while, and plus your lighting has to be fairly well. Now, you've got a unique setup where you're using dual cameras, but yeah,
That's fantastic.
Now, one of the things that you also do is you create gaming assets from your photogrammetry. So not only do you have the detail, but you probably also have low polygons as well. Is that correct, Daniel?
Not on that one yet.
Yes, I noticed it took a little while to load.
Yeah, I have a long list of to-dos, right? But yeah, it took about, I'd say about 15 or so minutes. Thankfully, I live out on the coast, so it stays foggy a lot, which is really great for photogrammetry. Heavy overcast, you get that nice polarized light. Certainly helps. It doesn't take terribly long. The processing can take a while, but there's a few tricks with that. To extract the most amount of detail out of it, I have a little trick I do in ZBrush with the color map. You kind of feed the map back into itself, and you get back all your tertiary detail. Is it okay to share my screen real quick, or would that eat up too much bandwidth?
No, go ahead. Yeah, obviously, I'm eating up some bandwidth bringing this up. That's why you broke up a little bit, but I think it was worth it to see some visuals. Yeah, I'd really love to have you back on. Maybe we could do a tutorial together. Photogrammetry is really the best way to get back into, and let me show his screen here, go ahead.
So this is a real-time render. I just did this scan 2 days ago or so. Still very high poly, but this is a real-time render in Marmoset 2. Let's see if I can grab the mesh here. Might be kind of boggy. But this is one chunk done in PhotoScan, and you can get pretty high-end detail.
Wow.
And from here, you have your choice on how you want to retopologize and bake things out. I personally love, there's Z-Remesher is nice in that whole pipeline, but I love TopoGun and the new Substance. Maya batch tools are fantastic for this kind of work.
I have a quick question for you. Have you any experience with using the video features of PhotoScan? I know they had introduced that a little while ago because I'm working on a project now where we're going to get like 20 phantoms and we're going to shoot a torso, like a singer singing. It's for this VR single that I'm working on. We're going to shoot and then generate meshes for each frame, and then I have a way of dynamically loading the meshes in Unity.
Very nice. I haven't experimented with that feature too much, although I have seen it done through several other people that do this. And one of the tools that they're talking about is to take all those meshes and retopologize them quickly. There's this great tool, WrapX, R3DS WrapX.
Yeah, I own that. Yeah, I have that.
Nice.
The Russian guy is awesome. I've been dealing with it for over a year now. So yeah,
I love that software.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So maybe I can get you to help consult on this when more of it gets together.
Sure.
How long did it take you to generate that, and also the other model that we just looked at?
It of course depends. With PhotoScan, everything kind of gets exponentially longer the higher you crank it up, and masking plays an important role. So to get like the underside of the shoe here, everything has to be masked out. That could be really painstaking. There's sort of a hidden way to do that in PhotoScan. I run everything at its lowest level, so it takes minutes instead of hours, and then generate a mask from the model itself. I'd say the shoe probably took 3 hours maybe, and then post with ZBrush and everything else maybe about another hour. The barn, I just let it run overnight.
I think for games, this is definitely going to be something that they're going to look at.
Yeah.
I mean, this is.
Oh yeah. the astronauts put out Vanishing of Ethan Carter, I think last year or the year before, and that was basically doing this method, and it's a gorgeous game. It's beautiful.
Oh, Daniel, I really appreciate it. Obviously, you've got some great work there. And for those of you who aren't familiar with it, photogrammetry can be done by anybody now because there's a product by Autodesk called something, Catch? What's it called?
123D Catch.
123, thank you.
Memento.
Yeah, and then also there's Memento. But the nice thing about Catch is that it's available on Android, iOS, and so if you've got a phone or a tablet, you can do this on your own. But I have to agree with Daniel. I think the go-to product, if you want to do this seriously, is PhotoScan. I think Memento is moving in that direction. One of the things that we had them on, Katja, I think was her name, who's the project manager of it. We've had her on. Oh, yeah, look at that detail. But Memento's big forte is the ability to bring in high polygon meshes and be able to manipulate them. I don't know, I use NetFab a lot, and I find that NetFab has been my go-to tool. I've worked with Memento. It's still rough around the edges, but I hope to see more work with it. Now, I haven't used their cloud engine for doing photogrammetry. Have you worked with it, and do you still think that the tool that you're working with is still the one to go to?
But I do work with Memento and the cloud stuff. Professionally, I think people are still a little on the fence about, uploading stuff to cloud space, but that's a whole other topic, I guess. I use Memento normally or usually for large LiDAR sets, big LiDAR meshes to be able to slice things up, close holes, and get it out quickly. For processing a point cloud into a mesh, I still like PhotoScan because there's a flexibility in allowing to re-import your mesh with a custom UV and project this high-res texture on like a nicely laid out UV, which is really important.
I totally agree with you. And they do have a demo version. I don't know how complete it is, but I think it's either a 15 or 30 day. So if you're interested in, I also plan to have the developers of PhotoScan on at a later date in an interview or on our 3D in Review show on Fridays. So look forward to that. All right, one more item that I want to cover, and that is James's product. And I will drop back into my screen so you don't have to do it on your end. You can just kind of talk about it. One of the things that has been of interest to James is the ability to print with more than one nozzle or extruder. And this is a product out there on Kickstarter right now called 3D Monster. I'll go ahead and play the video in the background behind me.
Yeah, so this product has 4 extruders in a large printing area. He's got 3 different models. I believe one's 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot cube, and the other one's 18 inches cubed, and then the last one's 24 inches cubed. Of course, I think it's like $3,000 for the 1 foot cube, and then I think it gets up to $7,000 or $8,000 for the 2 foot cube. But right there it showed you the 4 extruders, and he even goes into talking about why you would need 4, and it's basically the same things I said. You got to have one, for the dissolved. You have to have one that's flexible. You have to have one that's rigid, and then they even come out. They even have filament that's conductive, so you may be able to bring circuitry through your model as well. So a 4 extruder makes a lot of sense to me, at least engineering wise. So, and
yeah, I don't know. Zach, did you see them at Maker Faire? I noticed that he had a Maker Faire badge to his left there, but maybe the New York one.
Yeah, I didn't see him, but this is cool.
Yeah, I think he's having a little trouble getting this product out. I think it said something about October is when it's scheduled for production. I don't know if he's going to start production in that month or if he's going to ship, but yeah, that's been one of I don't know too much, so I mean, I don't want to say too much bad things and have them get mad at us. But from the comments, that's what I think's happening.
Well, so I've owned the 2 extruder head models, obviously not made by this guy, and they're really hard to calibrate and get working correctly. So 4 is just even more complex.
Yeah.
So I'm skeptical that it'll work, but
yeah, and I'm actually skeptical as well. Chris and I have been covering it. He has a Fortis 250, and we know the price of that, which is a dual extruder. Stratasys really hasn't moved past that. I do know that the Cube Pro from 3D Systems has more than one, but they have a fully proprietary mechanism for not only the filament but the extrusion process.
Have you heard any reviews on that thing?
Yeah, actually they're okay. Nothing that says, wow, go out, but the pricing is good. You know, the big caveat behind, as I just mentioned, everything is proprietary. You can only use their filament, but, you know, there's a plus behind that. Everything is controlled, so at least, and that's one of the reasons why the Stratasys is probably the same way, is that if you can control the entire environment, including the filament, you have much more success. I think that my only experience is with the Replicator 2X, and that the X really stood for experimental, and even though they still carry it, it was one that was difficult to calibrate, and I had somebody come into one of our user group meeting with their unit and just kind of was tearing their hair out because they could never get anything to print well, even with just one extruder. So left kind of a bad taste with multi-extruder, but you know, this guy has some great machine components there. It's probably not very light, but I have a MakerGear M2, which is my go-to 3D printer because of its steel, what do you want to call it, case. So.
Yeah, it seems pretty solid, the actual machine itself. He does talk about that in his article, that, you know, everything's built out of metal, it's very heavy, so, you know, that may help with the calibration process.
Well, you're saying that his actual Kickstarter program, where are we at with it now? Well, he's already...
It's funded. People are just... some people are complaining about getting it. I don't know if any have shipped yet. I think someone asked that as well, but I don't want to say incorrect information, so always be skeptical of Kickstarters.
Yeah, let's see what he actually has for a delivery date. May of 2014, and we're already 2015, so we're saying that he actually hasn't shipped anything yet?
I don't know. You could take a look in the comments section up in the top left. That's usually a good spot to look to see.
Okay. Well, I'll let our audience make that decision. I haven't looked into it. Yeah, but 1 year, as you know, I've been a little soured by a company called, gee, I've already forgotten their name now, who make the Nest system.
Sense. Oh, no,
6 Sense.
Yeah, that's another one.
Who's another one that's gone well past a year and still hasn't delivered. And I've got 2 that have done that already. So there's a lot into that, and we covered that in a previous episode of what it takes to do a Kickstarter properly. And some people just don't go through the full process. So, but it does look interesting. It looks, in my opinion, very solid, but his video and so forth leave, I wouldn't say a little bit to be desired, but kind of talks kind of a garage type process. But some Kickstarters work well from there. Anybody else want to chime in this before we move on and kind of close down our show? No. Okay. Well, a couple of other things that are going to be in the show notes. We've got a couple of shows that I'd like to talk about. Without Chris being here, we don't have any tips from the Print Whisperer, and I won't be bringing up that kind of, I don't want to say in memory. Hopefully he'll be back. But miss you, Chris. If you get a chance to watch this, it's not the same without your kookiness and your enthusiasm. But some of the 3D conferences coming up. We have NC 3D Printing Conference Expo in Melbourne, Australia. So if you're there, I don't think I'll be taking a flight out there. Prices to get in is $229 to $799. We also have the 3D Print Summit Design on June 1st through June 2nd in the UK at Edinburgh, at the National Museum of Scotland. That's kind of interesting. And then we have the 3D Print Conference in St. Petersburg in June 5th in Russia, obviously, in St. Petersburg. And so, but that one also has a price of 2,500 to 8,000 rubles. So other than the one in Scotland, well, actually there's a price for that one of 40 pounds. Man, everybody's charging to get into these, but I guess that's the price of admission now. So that's what's going on in the least this week and next week. And obviously I'll have links to this as well as 3dprintingforbeginners.com, fair events where they show pretty much everything that's going on. So if you want to know what's going on in your area, that's the go-to calendar I have found. So with that, any last words? We've got lots of people on today, so I really appreciate you coming in. Zach, Daniel, Bryan, it's always great to have you on. I wish I'd have you on more. Obviously, VR is something that's in the news a lot, especially with Google I/O showing some predominant things. But Daniel, I really appreciate it. I'm hoping to do a more extensive interview with you. And the same thing, Zach, if you wouldn't mind getting back with me when you're ready to launch and we can have you back on, maybe you can give us a live demo and how to work with it, if you don't mind. Obviously, it's a very cool product, and that is Inventables Carve and the X-Carve, which will be coming out this fall.
No, X-Carve is actually shipping now. Sorry.
Oh, I apologize for that. So if you want your hands on the X-Carve, it is available now. The Carve is what's coming out in the fall.
Yeah.
So very cool.
Cool.
So on that, if anybody else doesn't have anything, I think we can call this episode a wrap. And we're only 2 minutes past 11, so we're doing really well today. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.